This looks like a mugshot. The subject holds keys to heaven. His title declares him repentant, forgiven, and elevated to sainthood. But the face tells a different story. Red-rimmed eyes, clasped hands pressed together with enough force to show the knuckles, an upward gaze searching for something that refuses to appear. Francisco Goya painted this in Madrid between 1823 and 1825. He was 77 years old, profoundly deaf, and hiding in a priest's home while King Ferdinand VII's agents hunted liberals across Spain. The painting is small, 29 by 25 inches, meant for private viewing, not public altar. It depicts Saint Peter, the rock on which Christ built his church, the holder of the keys to heaven. But Goya stripped away every traditional element that makes a saint recognizable. No halo, no divine light, no smooth, idealized features. What remains is a forensic document of guilt, each painted element functioning as evidence in a confession. The question the painting refuses to answer: can someone who failed catastrophically still be worthy of the authority they hold? Peter's eyes look upward. In traditional saint portraiture, this gesture signifies divine connection, the moment when heaven acknowledges the faithful. Baroque masters like El Greco painted white highlights in the pupils to show this reflection, visual proof that God was present in the gaze. Goya painted no such light. The eyes are red-rimmed, watery, and searching for something that isn't there. The pupils contain no celestial glow, only murky darkness. The lids are heavy. The sockets appear swollen. This is not the face of transcendence. This is the visual translation of Matthew 26:75, the moment after Peter denied Christ 3 times and realized what fear had made him become, and he went out and wept bitterly. The biblical account is specific. Roman soldiers came to arrest Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. Peter followed at a distance. 3 times people asked if he was one of Christ's followers. 3 times Peter said no. He didn't know the man. The rooster crowed. Peter remembered Christ's prophecy that he would deny him before dawn. The text records only that he wept. Goya painted the ongoing process, not the past event. The eyes are wet, not dry. The tears haven't stopped. The upward gaze searches for divine reassurance, but the composition provides none. The face documents severance. The connection has been cut. 2 massive keys hang from Peter's grip. They are painted with heavy, dark impasto, thick applications of paint creating rough texture. The keys appear made of rough iron rather than celestial gold. In traditional iconography, saints hold their symbolic objects triumphantly. The keys represent Christ's promise recorded in Matthew 16:19. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. They grant ultimate authority, the power to determine who enters paradise. Goya painted them as dead weight. The keys pull downward with gravitational force. The metal texture is coarse, industrial, brutal. They don't reflect light. They absorb it. Peter's grip shows strain. These aren't trophies. They are physical torture. The painting captures an impossible position, holding power you believe you forfeited. Peter was given the keys before his denial. After his denial, he still holds them. The authority remains, but the internal sense of worthiness has been destroyed. The keys become evidence of the gap between the position granted and the fitness felt. This tension would have registered immediately with Goya's likely viewer, the priest José Duaso y Latre, who was hiding Goya in his Madrid home during this period. Spain in 1823 was a nation of people holding positions they felt unworthy to occupy, carrying responsibilities while internally collapsing under the weight of compromises made to survive King Ferdinand VII's purge. The hands aren't lifted in devotion. They're clasped together with enough pressure to define the knuckles. The fingers are interlocked, one hand gripping the other. The gesture reads as physical compression rather than prayerful release. Traditional prayer imagery shows hands lifted toward heaven or open to receive grace. Goya painted hands that hold the body together. If the grip releases, the figure collapses. The anatomical detail is precise. The knuckles are white from pressure. The fingers don't rest. They lock. The gesture visualizes guilt as something requiring constant physical management. Prayer becomes restraint, not communion. The hands also hold the keys, but the grip appears involuntary. He can't let go. The keys define his identity, but he can't carry them comfortably. The hands document the ongoing effort to maintain a position while feeling fundamentally disqualified from holding it. The forehead is painted with heavy impasto, creating a jagged, erratic surface. The brushwork is violent, thick, slashing strokes that build up rough texture rather than smoothing it away. This technique is identical to Goya's black paintings, created between 1819 and 1823 in his home outside Madrid. Those 14 murals include Saturn devouring his son, images of horror, madness, and internal disintegration painted directly on the walls of his dining room and living spaces. While Saturn shows external violence, a god eating his children, Saint Peter shows internal violence using the same painterly approach. The texture itself is testimonial. The smooth surface of sanctity, visible in Goya's earlier court portraits from the 1780s and 1790s, has been destroyed. What remains is chaos made external. The skull is balding, the skin sagging. Both subject and artist are old men. Goya was 77 when he painted this, deaf since a near-fatal illness in 1792, isolated from the Spanish court that once celebrated him. Traditional religious art grants the elderly transcendence, wisdom, serenity, divine favor, smoothing the indignities of age. Goya removed all protective idealization. The rough texture strips away the possibility of graceful aging. This is frailty without comfort, old age without transcendence. Peter's name means rock. Christ said in Matthew 16:18, "You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church." Traditional paintings show him leaning against a stone, a visual pun on his identity as a foundation. Goya painted the rock dissolving into shadow. The stone is barely distinguishable from the dark background. It exists at the edge of visibility, nearly absorbed into the murky space surrounding the figure. The support structure is failing. The foundation is unstable. The timing matters. Goya painted this during the Decada Ominosa, the ominous decade. King Ferdinand VII had been restored to absolute power in 1823 after a brief period of constitutional government. He reinstated the Spanish Inquisition and began systematically hunting down liberals, intellectuals, and anyone associated with the Constitution of 1812. Goya had served the French occupiers during the Peninsular War. He had satirized the Spanish clergy in his Capricos etchings. He was a known liberal in an era when liberalism was treated as treason. The punishment for such crimes was purification, political purging that often meant execution or imprisonment. Both painter and subject exist in a moment when foundations have become unreliable. The rock that should provide stability is dissolving. The figure remains upright, but the ground beneath him is turning to shadow. There is no halo, no golden ring, no divine glow. No celestial light softens the face or indicates heavenly favor. Traditional saint portraiture uses the halo as visual shorthand for sanctity, the marker that separates the holy from the human. Its presence tells the viewer, this person has been elevated, transformed, made different from ordinary flesh. Goya removed it entirely. What remains is a man without protective idealization. The only light in the painting comes from an undefined source that illuminates the face and hands, but provides no warmth, no transcendence, no comfort. The absence forces confrontation with the human rather than worship of the icon. The painting is small, 29 by 25 inches, and was likely never intended for public display. The Phillips Collection's records indicate it was painted for private meditation, possibly for José Duaso, Ilatre, or for Goya's own contemplation. The intimate scale requires close viewing. The removed halo eliminates the protective distance between viewer and subject. The only holiness comes from brutal honesty. The painting treats sanctity not as granted status, but as something earned through facing failure without illusion. Peter exists in a murky, undefined void. The background isn't a heavenly realm or an earthly location. It has no architecture, no landscape, No markers of time or place. It is psychological space, the interior geography of guilt. The figure forms a heavy, grounded, triangular pyramid shape. Traditional compositions use this geometry to show stability rising toward heaven, a solid base supporting upward movement. Here, the triangle reads as a gravitational collapse barely held in position. The figure is rooted but not supported, looking up but not lifted. The dark space refuses narrative resolution. Peter looks upward for divine reassurance that the painting will not provide. His eyes search, his hands grip, his body maintains position. But the composition offers no answer to the question the painting documents. Am I forgiven? Am I worthy? Art historians now view this work as a precursor to Expressionism. Robert Hughes's 2003 study Goya notes that the painting prioritizes psychological truth over religious doctrine nearly a century before movements like German Expressionism formalized the approach. The Phillips Collection's curatorial analysis connects the heavily impasted technique to Goya's late-life meditation on mortality and the failure of institutional structures to provide genuine spiritual comfort. But scholarly consensus doesn't resolve the painting's central tension. Goya painted a man titled The Repentant Saint Peter. The title declares forgiveness achieved, penance completed, sanctity granted. The visual evidence shows a man crushed by unworthiness, unable to forgive himself even if God has forgiven him. The painting was completed shortly before Goya fled Spain for France in 1824, ostensibly seeking health waters in Plombières, but in reality escaping execution. He died in Bordeaux in 1828, still in exile, never returning to Spain. The question remains suspended. What does it mean to hold authority you feel fundamentally unqualified to possess? The keys still hang from Peter's hands. The title still declares him a saint, but the eyes still search for reassurance that refuses to appear in the painted darkness. Goya painted this confession between 1823 and 1825 in a small room in Madrid while hiding from men who wanted him dead. He was 77, deaf, and facing the real possibility that his life would end not peacefully, but violently, purged by the same Inquisition that had once tolerated his court position because his technical skill was undeniable. He chose to paint Peter, not Christ suffering, not Mary mourning, not martyrs dying with divine light flooding their wounds. He painted the man who survived when he shouldn't have, who failed catastrophically and kept living anyway. The painting measures 29 by 25 inches. It fits in a modest frame. It was never meant for an altar or a cathedral wall. It was meant to be seen up close, alone, in silence. The scale of private reckoning rather than public worship. Every traditional element that grants comfort has been removed. The halo that marks sanctity, the divine light that softens human weakness, the smooth, idealized features that make saints look like they belong to another realm. What remains is a forensic document, red-rimmed eyes looking into a void, hands gripping keys that feel like chains, rough texture making psychological violence visible on the surface of the canvas. The painting doesn't answer its own question. Peter looks upward. The composition provides no reassurance. He holds the keys. The title declares him repentant, forgiven, and elevated. But the face shows a man who cannot forgive himself, even if God already has. Goya fled to France in 1824. He died in Bordeaux in 1828, still in exile. This painting remained, small, dark, unresolved. Not a celebration of faith restored, but a record of the space between crime and absolution, where most people actually live. The moment after you realize what fear made you do. The moment before you know if you'll ever stop feeling the weight of it. The eyes keep searching. The keys keep pulling downward. The question stays open.